welcome to NewsNation, where right and left come to be reasonable, and it is reasonable to see the rise of extremism in our politics and our people. And here at NewsNation, we resolve to fight it, not feed it. So here's the moment we are in. I just said I don't think there's any good answer, meaning what? Meaning a perfect answer, meaning a clean answer. Okay? Most of life's most difficult decisions, let alone when war is involved, are going to be fraught with context and nuance and chance. Okay? Here's the moment. Bombs are dropping on Israel after they launched another assault on the regime in Iran. The region is at war. American air and sea assets are moving and quickly to the region, reportedly to protect troops there. And I don't think many Americans understand how much exposure we have in that region. However, those troop movements could change in terms of their intention. The question is, should it change? President Trump has two questions to answer. They may be the most weighty ones of his administration, maybe of his life. Zero hype. The first question, does America have to stop the regime in Iran from enriching uranium? Yes or no? You could say no and not be absurd, as some MAGA folk on social media suggest. Israel could be left to it. Also, there are plenty of bad actors that have nukes already. Russia, China, Pakistan, North Korea, they all have nukes. And for all the saber rattling, there's been no mutually assured destruction, at least not yet. Now, a no is not a free answer. A no creates risk. Israel doesn't get it done. Or worse, the regime gets a nuke, and once they do, they use it. The counter, well, the other countries haven't used any, true. But no other country openly declares death to America. That's what the regime in Iran does. That's what makes it special. No other country with nukes is led by a toxic form of Islamism that seeks to annihilate Jews and the West. That's us. That reality takes us to the other answer. Yes, America needs to stop the regime in Iran from enriching uranium. But how? That is the gazillion-dollar question. That's where all the yappers on social media fall short. How? What would they do? Negotiate? More sanctions? Military? Sanctions and deals and talk have gotten us to this point. That said, there's no indication President Trump is considering what those on the right and left fringe are assuming. Time for boots on the ground. Again, there are reports of American assets moving to the area, but that is likely to defend what we have there already. The likely option, if military action were chosen, would be bunker busters. America has weapons, bombs, that can get where Israel cannot, 300 or more feet down. Why that deep? That's where it is believed the regime is hiding its enrichment facilities. These bombs are so heavy, they need to be dropped with B-2 bombers, specially equipped to handle the load, meaning America would have to decide to bomb inside Iran, okay? This proposition, this choice has MAGA imploding, which was always going to happen. Why? Because all extreme things implode. And within MAGA, you have a mix of extreme agendas that had to come into conflict at some point. Up until now, they've had the left as their enemy. But now, this isn't about the left, this is about themselves. There are too many getting paid to outrage and provoke for profit for things to not come to this. So right now you have in the same group extreme isolationists like Bannon, Tucker Carlson, and some other jokers on podcasts who believe America should just ignore the world. And then you have the hawks from what used to be the GOP, many of whom have shows on Fox. The hawks believe Islam hates us, and America must use her might to fight the good fight as they see it, as if you can end a faith or kill an idea with force alone. Hasn't worked up till now. President Trump has said Islam hates us. He has also said America should stay out of world affairs. But he can no longer serve both masters. Adding to the problem, both of these extremes within MAGA are toxic and bad for the presidency and the country. My take, this is a moment where the president can step up and move away from MAGA and its extremists. He needs to find consensus and be reasonable, and that means listening to better minds, not minions, and thinking like a uniter, not a divider. Yes, MAGA got him here, but it will not get him where he wants to be. It is time to be for the country. So what to do? I suggest President Trump will conclude the regime must be stopped from enriching uranium, but will not go to direct military action yet. Why? Several reasons. First, too much downside strategically, given we don't know any threat to the United States or its assets in the region is imminent. Yes, Israel is saying it is. I'll get to that. But America clearly didn't think that, as they had no plan to do anything about it militarily, and they were planning to meet with the regime when Israel bombed. Personally, President Trump, Donald John Trump, is not inclined to use military at scale. This was true long before entering politics. He sees no clear reward from our history. Now, you can criticize his lack of moral agency or desire to spread and protect freedom, but I'm not sure that's competent criticism in this context, and regardless, we'd arrive in the same place. Trump is not excited about military force. And yes, I know today he signaled otherwise. Here's the president.
I've been negotiating. I told them to do the deal. They should have done the deal. Their cities have been blown to pieces, have lost a lot of people. They should have done the deal. I told them do the deal. So I don't know. I'm not too much in a mood to negotiate.
My suggestion, this president says things often for effect. What is true about tariffs and deportations is much more true here. What President Trump says is not set in stone. The president's advisors believe Iran can't take the tenderizing from Israel for long, and that there is a chance to sit and get a deal. At a minimum, using the military would be better accepted by our allies if the world knew the regime was given a chance to talk, after ignoring the deadline America already set, after breaking the deal that it made not to enrich past a certain level, which it has according to the monitoring agency. So that this was the regime's choice to be forced. A bonus in this approach, the president will be agreeing with the majority, if not all of MAGA. A poll last week found overwhelmingly Americans support not military action, okay? Only 14%. America, in the majority, supports something else, okay? You know, diplomacy, whatever else you want to call it. Over 70%. So what are the X factors? How close is the regime to a weapon? The president's own people previously told him that the regime wasn't even trying. That came from his director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard.
The IC continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003. The IC continues to monitor closely if Tehran decides to reauthorize its nuclear weapons program.
The president seemed to find that assessment less than intelligent today, insisting he doesn't care what she said back in March, that Iran is very close to getting a nuke. But is that because, as President Trump did with Putin, Trump is choosing to believe another leader instead of his own people? Because Bibi Netanyahu is saying the regime is weeks away, but I have to be honest, he could be right, but Netanyahu has been saying this for years.
From there, it's only a few months, possibly a few weeks, before they get enough enriched uranium for the first bomb.
That would place a militant Islamic terror regime weeks away from having the fissile material for an entire arsenal of nuclear bombs.
If the regime gets a nuke, America has a major problem. And if America strikes and it goes wrong, you kill a ton of innocents, or you don't even know if the program were dismantled without going on the ground, now you have a major concern. Then again, if you don't strike, and even if you do make a deal, the regime has done nothing but broken its word repeatedly. So there's another major concern. That's why I say there's no easy, correct answer here. And there are other X factors, okay? What if there's an attack on our people in the region? We have around 50,000 people on 19 sites in the region. I've always thought it was too much exposure. I don't understand it. I don't know how it serves us and is worth the risk. We know there are plenty of extremists also here at home, desperate for a chance to act. And we have way more people who are sympathetic even to extreme Islamism and sees them as victims. Now, if something like that happens, it absolutely could force the president's hand. The other X factor is whether or not this president is going to cave to MAGA pressure. The isolationists are loud on podcasts and social media, and the media then magnifies that minority, and Trump is sensitive to haters from his own ranks and may seek to soothe. But here's the question for the majority, for us, okay? Is this Trump's call? I don't think so legally, not from what we know now. Congress declares war according to the Constitution. Congress has also abdicated that duty over warfare to presidents for a long time, and it's time for Congress to step up and do its damn job. A president has limited ability to attack on their own. Trump did so in 2020 when he killed a regime general in Iraq using the 2002 Iraq AUMF, the Authorization for Use of Military Force, which reads, defend the national security of the United States against the continuing threat posed by Iraq. Because the Iranian general was in Iraq, they argued Iran funds militias that are attacking us in Iraq, so it still stands, even though it's over 20 years ago and designed for 9/11, and they took out Soleimani. But look, it was certainly a legal gray area, but Congress didn't care, so they didn't say anything about it. Now, then there was enough momentum in Congress to redo or undo this absurdity that we're still operating under an AUMF from 9/11, but you know who vetoed it? Trump. Why? Because he wants the power. That doesn't mean he's do it. I don't believe he can rely on the AUMF, and I don't believe he can rely on his Article 2 powers alone. Yes, it's been interpreted broadly to give the president executive authority to conduct military actions while there's no declaration of war by Congress, but it assumes an exigency. Okay? And that exigency, that understanding, that assumption was codified in 1973 in the War Powers Act, which clearly limits the president's ability to use U.S. forces without congressional approval. Now, the condition is there's a national emergency considered created by attack upon the U.S., its territories or possessions or its armed forces. We don't have that. And I know people want to say an emergency is subjective. It's not that subjective. Now, I get that seeking Congress approval is tedious, but I got to tell you, Congress should be doing it on its own. It should be telling the president and passing a resolution to say, we think you need to come to us about this, okay? And they're not, and I think that's cowardice, and I hope you see that. And I get that it's tedious for the president to have to go to Congress, but welcome to democracy, okay? The system was set up this way for a reason. A president has to come to them. He needs to show proof if there's something imminent, okay? If Trump is smart, he would want Congress in the mix. The risk here is great. It is great enough to share the burden with the people that the Constitution set out to share it, okay? The question as to who makes the call also makes a sudden military move by the United States less likely. But make no mistake, I took a lot of time on this tonight because it deserves the time. We are living the most consequential period of this presidency. And the president is not served well by his MAGA minions who seem intent to make everything worse. His legacy may be upon him with the choices he makes here. So let's discuss. We've learned that American commanders are putting troops on high alert throughout the region, as they should be. Why? There are new reports that the regime is preparing missiles for a retaliatory attack on U.S. bases, and we have so many people on so many sites. The American State Department just announced the embassy in Jerusalem is closing, but we can't remove our footprint entirely. We are exposed. So there are signs the U.S. is preparing to become more deeply involved, if only defensively. Let's get a state of play from a much better mind about what the options here and what the implications are. President and founder of the Eurasia Group, my friend and mentor, Ian Bremmer. Ian, thank you for joining me tonight.
Chris, important time to join you. Thanks to be here.
Now, did I get that right-ish in terms of what the questions are and the propositions?
Oh, yeah. I thought it was very well put together, Chris. I heard the whole thing. I think it is incredibly consequential. My view at this point is that Trump is going to authorize attacks on Fordo, specifically on this one major nuclear location that is under the mountain, under 300 meters of solid rock, that the Israelis cannot hit themselves. I don't think it's necessary. I think there are other options. I don't think it's as urgent as Trump has made it out to be, but I think the momentum is such, and his willingness to be the guy that is telling the Iranians, that's it. I'm not taking this anymore. He's already kind of painted himself in a corner. Doesn't mean he can't come out of it, but if you ask me what he's going to do in the next coming days, 1, 2, 3 days max, I fear that's the decision.
How do you know it was effective without being on the ground?
Well, you don't know. I'm not a military expert, but
I know I got one on
you,
coming on after you, John Spencer. But
you'll
let's tee it up for
you'll
him.
ask that person. But I do know that there is not a great level of certainty
Right.
among the military advisors that the U.S. would definitely be
Right.
able to destroy
I hear the same
this
thing.
site when they hit it.
I hear the same thing. Hey, let me ask you, in terms of what it means, this internecine strife within MAGA is not a surprise to either of us because you had such mixed agendas in there that were just focused circumstantially against the left, but now they're against one another. What do you take away from seeing the infighting between the isolationists and the anti-Islamists within MAGA?
Less than you'd think. I mean, it's kind of like the fight between deep MAGA and dark MAGA on tariffs and globalism, for example. At the end of the day, this is Trump's party. He's the president. And there are certainly people like Tucker Carlson who have gotten their knickers in a twist because Trump is not doing what they want him to do. But ultimately, they're either going to get with him, as Elon had to do eventually, or they're going to get kicked to the curb. And, you know, I think that most MAGA supporters really don't want Ken Burns war, but they don't mind TikTok war. So as long as it's the Americans engaging in strikes with some jet fighters, you know, for example, when Trump ended up killing Qasem Soleimani, which was quite spectacular, and at the time, many people thought extremely risky. And the Iranians did virtually nothing in response.
Yeah.
You know, MAGA was all in favor of that. So I think the first step, if Trump says that's it, I gave them a warning. I told them to surrender. They refused. They had a last chance. So now I'm going to go in and kick their butts. And I'm taking out, they wouldn't give away their nuclear program. I'm destroying it. I think that announcement will get very broad support from his base and certainly from Republicans in the House and Senate. Now, what happens after that, the days, the weeks, the months, the years, Chris, that's a much
because now you're asking for it. Now you've got extremism at home and you've got proxies abroad and nothing for free. So you hit them, they're going to do something.
We don't know. I mean, the funny thing is that so far, the Iranians over the last 4 days have shown rationality and restraint.
Right.
And those are not two words we typically associate with the Islamic Republic or with the supreme leader. But if the Americans come in, right, it is harder to imagine that they'll do that again. Now, maybe they will. Maybe they will. Again, the United States assassinated the leader of Iran's defense forces and did nothing.
Right.
So maybe, I mean, the point is they could offer to unwind Fordo. They could offer to allow inspectors in. They won't do it because that's more of a threat to the regime, frankly, than killing the Americans blowing it up.
100%. I agree with your analysis 100%. My question mark that you're not foreclosing, but you are right to look at what got us here in terms of the fact pattern, is I don't think you get in there and bomb for free. I think that it's an agitation that the regime takes differently than a warrior going down in a foreign land, as happened with Soleimani. But Ian, I appreciate you.
That.
Yeah.
We should talk about that for a second.
Okay, go ahead. Give me a take on it.
No, I was just going to say, like, keep in mind, this is a regime that has a lot of operational espionage expertise in tracking and assassinating foreign leaders. So, I mean, like, they're a group that has the ability to attack and destroy the Abqaiq, which is the most important refinery in the world in Saudi Arabia. They can disrupt the Straits of Hormuz. They've got radiological material, even if it's not weaponized in a bomb.
Right.
It could still cause a lot of trouble. So, I mean, you're potentially creating a regime that is Hamas times 100.
Right.
Right. And I don't think you can guarantee regime change. In fact, I don't think you get close to that.
No, I don't think
in
you do.
the near to medium term. So.
No.
It's what you're saying, Chris. You're opening up more than a can of worms here.
Yeah. And look, I mean, we're invested, as Americans, and if there is a real conflict that opens up regionally and you wind up having people on the ground, I'm going to go. So it's not something I'm anxious to see. Ian Bremmer, thank you very much. Appreciate you as always, brother. Always. Yeah. 4 minutes and 35 seconds. So you got the military part of this. It's hard to do better than Ian's mind on this. He talks to these people all the time. He understands. He has studied. But how vulnerable are we? And what happens if we use the bunker busters? And how effective are they? And how do you know? I got two people who understand the risk and reward and have lived it. Next.
Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. We don't have to go too deep into it. They just can't have a nuclear weapon. We'll come down so hard if they do anything to our people. We'll come down so hard that the gloves are off so beautifully. Now, I think they know not to touch our troops.
I think they know that also. And if the regime were to do something to our assets in that region, then there are a lot. Okay, there's a lot of exposure. That would make this an easier decision for the president in terms of first order of consequences. So that was President Trump yesterday. Now we've learned that Iran could be preparing retaliatory strikes against U.S. military bases in the Mideast. It's impossible to protect everyone everywhere. So is now the time for the United States to use bunker busters? What would that mean? Is it worth it? Okay, so you keep hearing about these massive bombs so heavy that only we have the planes and capability to deploy them, which would mean America would have to do it. Let's discuss the risk and the potential, the plus minus of it, okay? Former Deputy National Security Advisor from President Trump's first administration, my friend KT McFarland, and the Chair of Urban Warfare Studies at West Point, John Spencer, who's sitting right next to me. John, it's great to be with you in person. Thank you for the challenge coin. KT, what is your sense here of what makes the most sense for the president to do in this regard?
Look, I don't think he's made a decision yet. And I've been with President Trump in the Situation Room where he's faced those decisions, where he made the decision early in his first term to bomb the Syrian airfields where they were using chemical weapons against their own people. He's a reluctant warrior. He's got a goal in mind. In this case, he said Iran isn't going to have nuclear weapons. But how he gets to that goal, he could try a number of different things. So here's what he's doing right now. He's sitting in the Situation Room, which is like a large conference room at a large conference table. And he's got the Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, National Security Advisor, maybe now Secretary of State. And he's got all the people. He's going around the room and he's going to say, all right, what are our options? What is the risk of success? What's the risk of failure? What could go wrong? What could go right? He'll probably come up with a couple of options on his own. But his end goal, to always take him seriously, his end goal is Iran's not going to have nuclear weapons. But don't take him necessarily literally when he says, what, today, tomorrow. He's just looking for avenues in. One of the conversations that he's going to be having is, what is Israel's capability? I mean, everyone is now saying it's either U.S. bunker buster bombs or Iran keeps the nukes. Maybe there are other alternatives. Are there cyber attacks that the Israelis could do? Is there espionage that the Israelis could do? We know that they have units on the ground, commando units on the ground. It's something they could do just on the ground. The other thing he's going to be looking at is what's happening with the senior leadership of Iran. I think he's playing with the Ayatollah's head when he says, we know right where you are. We know how we could get you anytime. So what is happening in the senior leadership of Iran and the war councils? Is there somebody sitting around that room thinking, gee, I think we're going in the wrong direction. Let's have a palace coup. Or is there likely to be some kind of an uprising of the Iranian people? Trump is going to look at all those things before he makes a decision. And I think he's got some time before he has to make that decision.
John, do you agree with the idea that we have time here? And what do you understand about how these massive munitions work and how sure you can be that they worked?
Well, I absolutely believe there's always time, and there are all these risk considerations. Moving certain positions, we know the aircraft carriers getting into position. The more you can reduce that unknown risk of potential things that Iran could do, retaliate. Maybe it's performative and they just launch something near an air base. But the penetrators are what they sound like, massive penetrating weapons of over 20,000 pounds that actually use kinetic energy to push into the ground to hit that deep buried thing and then blow up inside of the ground. If it's used, it'll get the job done. I agree with KT, though. Even Israel called their operation in Syria Operation Many Ways when they put commandos on the ground to go inside the bunker and blow it up from inside. There are many ways to get the job done, but I think we should all agree that it has to be done.
How vulnerable are the ships that are necessary to drop those bombs?
No, they fly at pretty high rate, and Israel would be a part of this in creating the corridor, just like they did in the opening moments of this. They gained air supremacy and superiority at the same time by taking out the radar and the drones that would catch this up, let alone something to shoot at it. There's always risk. I think the risk has been reduced by Israel.
And in terms of what it means, so you drop these bombs, you say they'll do what they're supposed to do, but wouldn't you have to go in there? Wouldn't somebody have to check and see what is left of the operation, how serious it still is?
So there is that, and you have a way to test if there is any leakage of anything. But if you drop one of these, and that's the ideal, you need one as well. Israel's also infamous now at drilling, where they drop more than one bunker buster on the same location. They dropped 50 and 30 seconds on Mohammed Sinwar to make sure, no matter what was underground was dead and gone. So I don't necessarily think that you need to go and dig it out to make sure you got it. You might have to leave coverage over to in case somebody comes after you and to start poking around, which is a part of the kind of the follow-on operation.
KT, how big a deal is it, our vulnerability in the region? Reportedly 19 sites, 40, 50,000 troops on the ground. I mean, the idea that we're vulnerable in that region to somebody trying to retaliate.
No, we're already vulnerable, but this is if the Ayatollahs and the mullahs and the IRGC, if they want to come after Americans, they might as well just put the gun to their head and pull the trigger, because that would be the casus belli. That would be President Trump saying, okay, enough is enough. He's very, very protective of Americans. And he has said, whether it was to the Taliban or to others, you harm the hair on the head of one American, and I'm coming after you. So I think if they do that, that's a suicide mission on their own.
Anything to add at this point? Or you think we are where we are and we see what happens next?
Absolutely. And I think the president is some people say things, they don't mean it. I think he means it. If any American or American installation is.
That's easy, though. I think KT has it right, and it's not just because I see her at church on a regular basis. It's you take his intentions seriously, but you don't take every word literally.
I agree.
And I think that's very important to remember right now. John, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. KT, thank you for being my friend. Thank you for being a resource. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
4 minutes and 30 seconds. Up next. So you have different levels to this, right? You have America protecting itself, right? Because this regime wants us. There's no question about it, right? You then have this fight within our own political world here, specifically within MAGA, okay? One of the president's biggest supporters had been Tucker Carlson. I don't care what the guy says he believed about him in the past. All these people change their positions. He is now saying that Trump is done because of what's already happened, okay? Steve Bannon, who loves Trump and is the spirit animal of it, says, you got to stay home. So we have two of the strongest voices in the MAGA movement on either side of the conflict to make the case. All right, MAGA is going at it with MAGA, and it matters because it has influence on the president, it has influence on the people around him. Some of the strongest voices in that group are divided. This was inevitable All right, everything extreme implodes, and you have competing extreme agendas. You have isolationists who are rabid, and then you have anti-Islamists, people who believe Islam as a whole is out to kill us, and that the good fight is taking them out first. Okay? So on one side, the isolationist side, you got Bannon and you got Tucker Carlson. Okay? Here's what he told Bannon on the War Room.
You're not going to convince me that the Iranians, I'm not a Shiite. I'm not like on the side of the Shiite clerics. I'm a freaking Episcopalian. Settle down. However, you're not going to convince me that the Iranian people are my enemy. Again, we're going down this here. Here's who you're required to hate. It's Orwell, man. I'm really afraid that my country's going to be further weakened by this. I think we're going to see the end of American empire. Obviously, other nations would like to see that, and this is a perfect way to scuttle the USS America on the shoals of Iran. But it's also going to end, I believe, Trump's presidency.
First, Iran is Shia. It's the Sunni that they don't like. And it's not about the Iranian people. It's about a regime that is extreme Islamist and absolutely hates us. Now, that doesn't justify whatever will happen or not happen, but you should have your facts straight, okay? Let's bring in two MAGA voices, both sides are represented in terms of whether or not this is America's fight or not. Conservative talk show host Ben Ferguson believes the United States should fully support Israel, even if it means using our military. And the executive director of the American Conservative, Kurt Mills, who says if the U.S. engages in strikes against the regime, he could see a collapse of the MAGA coalition. Ben, it's good to see you, brother. Kurt, nice to meet you. Good to have you here. So, Kurt, let me start with you. You're new to the show. A collapse. I have been watching this. I thought it was inevitable. Watching now how people are talking about each other and the targeting. What do you see in this dynamic, and what decides it?
Look, so our magazine was founded in 2002 by Pat Buchanan against the Iraq War. So we are a home for a long-standing conservative skepticism of foreign adventurism. We reject the label isolationism. We think it's a slur, respectfully. And a lot of what Trump was saying on the campaign trail in 2016, 2020, and 2024 was very attractive to our magazine and our readers. And we have obviously been close with both Mr. Carlson and Mr. Bannon. I think there is extreme risk here if the war does not go well. It looks like the U.S. is going to enter at some level. Whether or not it is limited to strikes on the nuclear facility, and that's it, is one door. And whether or not it's an open, boots on the ground, et cetera, regime war is another contingency. So my answer, though, is if it is limited to strikes on the nuclear facilities, I think we then should take the Iran hawks at their word. This was about the nuclear proliferation. And so why is there a need for a wider war? And so that is our perspective.
Ben, you know, look, I get it. They're making a high bar there, though, right? Because who knows what the implications are. Why do you believe that, you know, President Trump was pretty clear and made a lot of political currency out of, man, these wars have been a waste of blood and treasure. Waste of blood and treasure. Is he about to waste blood and treasure?
No, and look, you need to just listen to what Donald Trump has said, and then you understand how extreme the idea is that we're about to put boots on the ground actually is. That's not what Donald Trump's going to do. By the way, that's not what I'm in favor of. I'm not in favor of invading Iran like we did Iraq or Afghanistan. I'm not in favor of nation building or thinking that diplomacy is going to be some sort of grand moment where they're like, oh, we want freedom and democracy in Iran. I don't want any of that. I learned from the mistakes we made in Iraq and Afghanistan. And if you listen to what Donald Trump has said for 10 years and 2 days, what did he say, Chris? He said over and over again that we cannot allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon because we know what they'll do with it. Listen to what they say, whether it is going with proxies and terrorist organizations to commit horrific crimes against the Jews or Americans. They said we're the big Satan and Israel's the little Satan. What this is simply about, and I think this is going to be a blip on the screen and we're going to move on in the conservative world, is Donald Trump saying we can't let them have this nuclear weapon. It will be used to destroy people in the world. It will make American and our interests unsafe. So if I'm the only one that can go in and use bunker busters to go after a nuclear site because Iran refuses to come to the table, then I may do that.
Right.
Does that mean troops on the ground? No. And the people that are out there putting words in Donald Trump's mouth,
right,
or other conservatives like myself, it's absurd because we're not in favor of invading or putting troops on the ground. We are in favor of making sure their nuclear program is bombed back 1,000 years, if you want to put it that way.
Right, I get it. Listen, one last thing, Kurt, it is a little bit ironic to see people within the MAGA movement doing what the MAGA movement usually does to the left, right? I heard one of Rogan's jokers, literally, the guy's a comedian when he's not talking about political philosophy, saying he should be impeached. The president should be impeached for what he already did. What do you make of that kind of insurgency within MAGA?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to Dave Smith. He seems like a nice guy. I only know him by correspondence. But Smith is somebody who is, I believe, a libertarian and just voted for Trump in 2024.
Whatever that means. Libertarian means nothing. It means I'm smarter than you because they never run anything. They never decide anything. It's just like, you
they
know.
They never win anything either.
I know. It's like saying you're tall. But anyway, go ahead.
I don't know what Carlson or Bannon have said, and I think their MAGA bona fides are pretty established at this point. So, I mean, I think with respect to my co-panelists here, I understand that the idea of this is that it will be different than Iraq. And not everybody who supported the Iraq war supports the Iran war. But with the honorable exception of the president, pretty much everybody who supported the Iran intervention supported the Iraq war.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit rich to say it's going to be all copacetic. It'll be fine. It'll be super strategic. Everything is all planned out.
But here's the difference. There's a difference in strategy here. There's a difference in strategy here.
You don't know what's going to happen, respectfully. And let me finish.
True.
Let me finish. Even if they are wiped out, the nuclear facilities, assuming we can do that, which I think is an assumption, but assuming it happens, I'll stipulate. The Iranians are probably months away from being able to rebuild their facilities again. And additionally, it's avoiding the actual forensic...
Let me jump in, Chris.
Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
Go
ahead, Kurt. Let me go because I'm tight on time. Let Ben get in. We don't filibuster here. Go ahead.
This is the problem with this idea that I go with Tucker Carlson. By the way, I know Steve Bannon well. We had dinner recently. I had him on my show 3 weeks ago. We don't have beef. We can disagree on something like this. It doesn't mean that MAGA world's on fire. It doesn't mean that I don't like Steve. I'll probably text him afterwards night saying, heads up, we were talking about you. Because this is a simple moment in time where I believe that Donald Trump is doing the right thing to protect the world and the United States of America. There's no conversation about invading our boots on the ground. That type of paranoia is not based in reality. Donald Trump does not want to be in a war like that. He said that clearly. Will he defend Israel and do what Israel can't do? Yes, I think he will.
I understand, but I get where Kurt's coming from. This is what we heard the last time. Strategic, specific, but we were coming at it from a very different perspective, Kurt, which was we had just gotten hit in a way that we had never been hit before. And we believed, we were told, we were deceived that we were going into the place responsible.
I think that makes it worse. There's no justification.
Well, the justification is we know that this regime is designed to destroy us. Should we allow them to have the means? But it doesn't mean this is the only way to do it.
That's not new. That's not new.
It is not new, and I don't think it's urgent. Anyway, I got to jump. I'm getting yelled at. A war of my own making. Kurt Mills, you're always welcome here. Thank you for coming on. Ben Ferguson, appreciate you. Say hello to Bannon. Tell him he owes me a phone call. 4 minutes and 15 seconds coming up. So, look, they don't agree. We'll see if they can hold together as a group, which is tough because a lot of them are fire breathers, all right? What does the left make of it? Where should they be on this? Where's Congress? David Pakman, smart, progressive. Next. I want to bring in intelligent, progressive commentator, host of the David Pakman Show, David Pakman. You can watch our podcast if you want to see a long conversation. I got 2 minutes here I want to give to you for you to just lay out what you see as the state of play here, David.
Well, I want to react to that debate we just saw because I think that's really one of the most important elements of the state of play. It's sort of entertaining seeing these MAGA guys go at each other now as if this is a disagreement over foreign policy. And it's really not, Chris. This is a growing civil war inside MAGA about whether they believe their own slogans. Because as you pointed out, Trump ran as the anti-war guy. No more endless wars. Tulsi agreed. But it wasn't principle, it was just branding. It's sort of like Trump supposedly against abortion, Trump supposedly religious, Trump supposedly anti-war, but he never was. And if you look at that first term, more drone strikes, pulled out of the Iran deal that precipitated this, I could give you the whole list. So to me, this is nothing more than the slogans being met with reality on the one side, and then the people who believed the stuff Trump said, even though there was every reason to believe that it was just what he thought would get him across the finish line. And now they have a real foreign policy problem to solve.
Well, look, one qualification. I think there are a lot of people who felt almost compelled to vote for Trump because they believed the Democrats had abandoned them, whether it was as a working mentality or was in terms of what was being offered as wokeism versus things that dealt with people who were broke. And within MAGA, there are people who took advantage of those people. And there are these real firebrand psychos in there for profit that are now fighting with each other. The question is, what should Congress do now? Should they step up and say, and should Democrats lead it and say, hey, we're supposed to decide war, not a president?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is not a presidency. This is not a White House that's super hot on law and order, due process, and following the rules. But to the extent that Congress is able to do something about it, you talk about authorization for military force, you talk about the War Powers Act. There's really no, I mean, especially in this situation, there's really no good legal argument for why Trump even has the authority to do this.
Yeah. David Pakman, I'd love to have you on the show whenever you want to be. I think you add to the conversation, and I appreciate you. Thanks for doing a quickie for me tonight.
Thank you.
All right, David Pakman, thank you. Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.